Data Voyagers.
There is a skill almost nobody thinks they need to work on. You ask questions every day. Always have. You ask them before you could read, before you could write, well before anyone handed you a dashboard. Questions feel natural, they feel automatic. Questions were the beginning of philosophy and science. But think about the last conversation where someone walked away with completely the wrong idea of what you needed, or the last time you got a technical correct answer that was totally useless. It happens at work, at home, in relationships. The person answering is not always the problem. What if the gap is the question? The idea doesn't sit well with most people. We rather fix the tool, upgrade the module, blame the hallucination. And now that everyone has a chatbot in front of them, the same communication habits that cause misunderstandings with colleagues are creating misunderstandings with AI. And nobody's really calling that out. One person has been calling it out for a while. He goes by a few names: Data Cathedral Architect, Chief Questions Officer, and my favorite, the Qlik Dork. Hello, Data Voiders. I am Igor Alcantara. Oi, pessoal. And I'm here, as always, joined by my dear friend, brilliant co host, fellow Qlik Ambassador, Qlik Education Ambassador, Angelika Klidas. Angelika, thanks for being here. Hoi allemaal.
Well, thank you, Igor. Oi, Igor. Hoi allemaal en fijn dat jullie er weer zijn vandaag.
I will never be able
Today,
to say that.
no, I don't think you will be able. But it's okay. It's okay. I can talk English. So today we have a super special guest with us. I am missing one thing only because it's also video recording. I missed the bow tie, that thing that you usually have on. So, Igor, would you mind introducing us to this amazing bloke?
Yeah, so Dalton and I, we go way back. He was and continue to be, actually, both of you, an inspiration to me, and I know for like many people, one of our biggest influencers. Always pushing the boundaries, always on top of like what's going on, and he's Dalton Ruer. And I we said offline, I also being called many names, most of them not nice, but the one that I'm really being proud of being called is friend of this amazing person. Dalton, we live in the same state actually, not far from each other. So Dalton, thank you so much for being here, and mind introducing yourself?
It's a pleasure, and it's funny how you introduced me and said I had so many titles, and then when you introduced Angelika, she had like 18,000 more than I did.
Well,
it's a
I
funny
could
thing,
say something about that.
and you'd say it in another language that I wouldn't understand.
Oh,
But yeah, it's a great thing in the world, especially with LinkedIn, where instead of doing a job title that we use every day that HR pays us for, we try to translate that into the things that mean something to other people, and would help them. Like, hey, why would I contact this person? Why would I connect with this person? What value are they going to offer me? What insights can they do? What thought leadership can I take away from that? So I'm blessed that I can call myself a chief question officer, and folks at Qlik are never worried that I'm insinuating I'm in the C-suite. I still have to go to the employee restroom. I don't have my own key to the corner office or anything. But I was a Qlik customer for many years. For those who don't know me, and I've now been at Qlik for 11 years after being a customer. So I'm an old guy, and a vast majority of my life has been spent with Qlik.
Great. So we have a great conversation today prepare for you guys. But before, let's just hear some quick words from our sponsor. Your data knows things your dashboards don't. Government agencies and healthcare organizations generate more data than most. Claims, case records, patient histories, service metrics. Most of it sits scattered across systems that weren't built to connect, and clean just enough to file, not enough to act on. IPC Global works with public sector and healthcare teams to change that. We bring data together from across your organization, clean it properly, and build a consistent, trustworthy foundation that makes analytics and AI worth investing in. We work on Qlik, Talent, and AWS, so we can meet you where your infrastructure already is. If your data isn't ready, your AI won't be either. Visit ipc-global.com to know more. It's ipc-global.com. All right, so let's get started. So, Angelika, would you mind making the honors to get us started?
Yeah, sure. So the first section of our conversation will be, of course, who is that bloke? Who is Dalton? So, and I know, Dalton, you have been in IT for over 30 years. Your life is full with Qlik. You are a coder. I remember one message on LinkedIn where you just told a story that your head was bent over and you will just kept on coding because, yeah, that makes you truly feel good. You're an architect. You are the complete package, right? So how was the transition from there to become at the end the Qlik Dork?
That's a great question. That's a great question. It was a tough transition, and one that a new friend that I met recently is going through now. Where as a programmer, you're focused on what you do, but you only see the code that you work on. And so when I was a Qlik developer, as a heads down, this is my day job type role, and trying to architect it for our health system, I thought, man, this is pretty good, but I really don't know compared to others. It's only through things like Qlik Community where iron can sharpen iron, and when you start taking the risks to publish things, then you're saying, this is what I believe. You're taking that risk that others could knock you down, or they can confirm, yeah, that really is a good idea. And so one of the things that helped me in that transition to becoming the Qlik Dork was Qlik Community, and being able to, read material from the greats. That was still back in the day where you bought physical books to read, and not everything was just in a YouTube video that you could transcribe in 2 seconds and glean the one piece of gold that you wanted out of it. So yeah, it was tough to saying, hey, I'm going to go from being a developer to being, helping lead thought processes and help other developers who are trying to figure out what's the right way to do this. How can I do this in a performant way?
Yeah, well, I can relate to that as well, of course. As you know, my history as well. Started out as a business analyst and manager, managing a Qlik competency center at the UWV, and a governmental organization. And from there, growing into the world of presenting, telling the stories, becoming a data storyteller. And at the end, feeling the confident enough to write a book with my other friend Kevin Hannigan. So yeah, I can relate to that on a personal level
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and the storytelling is an interesting one. People think of me as a data storyteller, and I've continued to hone that, as the Qlik Dork and in my role. Prior to that, though, I worked with a guy who start telling something and be like, I just need to know the answer, and he'd give me this elaborate 10-minute story, And like, I just need the end. Just get me to the end. And then eventually I started really loving it. Like, oh, I would have never have appreciated the end had you not given me all of the other material.
Yeah.
And then I started doing that same kind of thing, starting to hone analogies and, weave metaphors into the story to help people relate to it so that they could apply it, not just hear it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love your storytelling ability as well as Igor's.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, Igor,
So,
there you
yeah,
go.
talking about titles, it is interesting how they sometimes they help shape how we see things. And I remember when a few years ago when Qlik had the social media ambassador
Mm-hmm.
titles. For some reason that I still do not understand, Qlik gave me that title, and when they gave me the title, everybody that I know laughed because social, you're the most antisocial person I know. Um, and then I said, all right, but they gave me this title, so I'm gonna, own it. I'm gonna, I'm not taking for granted. So I went and studied and what I need to do and did training and course and coaching, all of that. And then I think I became a pretty good one. So sometimes they help you shape attitudes and stuff like that. I remember there was a customer, Boston College, actually I can name the customer, that I went there, and the receptionist was not the receptionist, she was the director of first impressions. And she act like a director with leadership, with all of that, which I love it. And so let's start talking about one of those titles that you have, the Data Cathedral Architect, which is a pretty good one. So you give yourself the title, or maybe the universe give yourself the title. We never know. And what does a cathedral have to do with data architecture, and why a cathedral specifically?
Fantastic. I appreciate that because I love sharing the story. When I gave my first presentation at Qlik, I read a book called Lead with the Story. And the story was about a physical cathedral, and an elderly woman sees this job site in the middle of her, old-fashioned town, goes to the first laborer. Hey, what are you doing? The guy's upset to even be bothered. He's like, I'm laying bricks, duh. Like, I'm surrounded by them. This is clearly what I'm doing. She talks to the next laborer. He's building a wall. He gives her the size and dimensions of it. And then she finds the next guy and he says, we just got started today on what's going to be the world's most magnificent cathedral. And I'd love to do it when it has to do with data, because I'll tease everybody. I assume you're all here for the bricklayers convention, right? And I'm like, no. And it's like, well, what if these bricks were data? And the problem that so many people had, especially that are our age, we've been in this business a long time, we have a tendency sometimes to get beaten down and think we can't really change the world, right? We've got people, it's just a report, it's just data, it's just the 99th version of the same thing I've been doing every week of my life. And sometimes we can get beaten down. But if we look at what we do, and our vision of it is bigger than that, we can maintain the same upbeat morale and do it with a vigor and a passion that hopefully then inspires others. And so, yes, you're building an application for a health system. If your vision is that that's going to be a data cathedral, that leaders come from around the world to look at how you save patients' lives, that's a different task that you have to wake up to every single morning of your life. And it gives you a different perspective of, when I tell people what I do, I'm helping save lives, right? I'm not just a dashboard builder, building, yet another dashboard. I'm trying to save lives. And when I have to have conversations with people who, maybe you can't build a cathedral without a bricklayer, you can't build a cathedral without a wall maker. You have to be able to talk to those people as well, and try to bring them along and help them understand. But when you know that that's just the nature of things, at least you keep your passion. So for anybody out there, if you're feeling burned out, feel free to reach out to me. I've got the whole story I can share with you, and
That's so
try
good.
to you regain
Yeah.
that passion you started with 10, 20, 30, like me, 40 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. I
Yeah.
have that book, and I really like that
Oh,
book.
I need to read it.
There's an
Yeah.
interesting coincidence. I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I remember Dalton
Smith or
also.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Dalton when we first, I think it's not the first time we met, but I remember that you joined one of my presentations and I did one of your presentations. I was still working in the healthcare area at that
Yep.
time.
Yep.
And you gave me those bricks.
A little
You
brick.
remember those,
Yep.
the red small bricks? That was so cool. They're still in my room. I kept it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's I used a real giant brick, and which scares people. And then I love giving away the small miniature versions. Just as a reminder, I have a good friend who, heard my presentation 11 and a half years ago. He's still got a real brick that's sitting in his desk that they use for their QBRs, just to remind people, why are we doing what we're doing? In the last quarter, we've had some failures. Is that going to change us, or are we going to keep going?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
they've accomplished some great things in 11 years. So thanks for bringing that up. And hopefully it's an encouragement to others. You can still have a better vision of what you do than maybe what people around you have been beaten into your head for years.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the next question, because actually one of my favorite topics, as I would like to see myself the same, which is the title Chief Question Officer. So most people in the room will hear the title and not know what it means. So, I just had a conversation with Igor when I was reading through the script, and I told him, oh man, I just did Monday a course in prompting, and how using a method in prompting gives you even better answers than the zero shots that you shoot out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a chief question officer. So, but if you would get that question, Dalton, how do you explain it to someone who's never thought about questioning as a discipline?
So great. That's great. And there's really two things, and I'll make sure I hit the one that you especially alluded to in the prompts themselves. But when I talk to people about chief question officers, you would expect a really fancy person in a really good looking suit who's a C-level person. The image I use is actually an infant with question marks all over the screen, because we as humans are born as chief question officers.
Exactly.
Why? But tell me more. But I want to know more. But give me the details about. And they ask and they ask and they ask. And as great human beings that we are, we say, shut up, because I said so. This is the only answer. Stop asking. Don't think about others. There are no such thing as nuances. This is the only answer. Get over it. Move on. Right? And
yeah,
so
and I think it's even more different because you have grandchildren as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a grandchild, and he is about 4.5 years old, and he is in his why period.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma, why? Grandma, why? Mama, why? I always use this story in explaining to people why questioning is that important, and you just tell the same story. And then they go to school and they can't ask any questions anymore because they are a pain in the butt.
Yep. It's not that teachers or parents don't understand it. It's that we're busy,
Exactly.
and they're an inconvenience, and we set this up. And so I always start with that because I want it to be led like, hey, instead of asking your kid, what did you learn in school today? Where they're all going to say nothing. What's the best question you asked today? Right? Because that is something they okay, that's what they want to know. I should ask better questions, and keep it that way, because especially in this day with, AI is going to take my job. It sure is if you don't know how to ask questions. And there's more to this that I want to make sure we get into. One part of that is prompting. But the other part is something that I know you guys follow me, and I've said for many, many years, context is king. Context is king. Context is king. And I beat that, and I beat that, and I beat that because context is king. And yet we're going to take people and put them down in front of a white chat box who for all their life have been beaten into them. There's one answer, there's one answer, there's one answer. They're going to ask their question like, give me the total of sales for 2025. And it is not going to be the same number that is right in front of them on the KPI, because there's a whole lot of questions that were asked by the designer of the person given requirements. I want you to show the sum of sales just for the current year. Now, let me ask you 20 more questions to actually drag the insights out of you, what I need for what that context is. And then all of that is hard-coded into master measures or variables, right? And the end user, their perspective is there's a simple KPI. There's one answer to my question, and there is on that screen after somebody else gave them 20 other answers. And so the hard part is they're going to ask questions, and there's going to be an answer that they think is wrong. And what they need to start doing is really thinking, what is the context that I'm missing as the human? What's the nuance that I thought I was clear on, but I wasn't? And that's what starts helping us then drive better prompts.
Yeah. And it said about the questions like science starts with a question and a hypothesis. Basically, it's based on a question. Then we test the question. And we started developing science because we were asking questions. What are those things in the sky? And then, we have wrong answers. We're going to get closer answers to the truth. Let me change the topics a little bit. And you said you said once that we had actually I think it was an email exchange that we had the biggest scam in the world. That is assuming you can take the same people who lose relationships because they can't communicate context and nuance, put them in front of a white chatbot and expect them to get the right answer. I like it because it's very provocative. Actually, I love it. But I'll ask you to elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, we already talked about context, but I think we can elaborate on that.
That's great. I'm glad you brought that up, because we know that we need context. The end users don't. And, unfortunately, in a lot of relationships, family members no longer communicate with each other. Spouses no longer communicate with each other, and marriages end. There are people that don't even talk to their own children. And it usually comes down to conversational problems and the inability to ever assume that it could be me who's wrong. They simply don't want to be critical thinkers and wonder, what context am I missing? When Angelika said that to me, what nuance was she communicating from that maybe I took it a different way? And it's easier just not to communicate. And so we've built those, we've learned from those lessons, built that into our lifestyle. And now we're being ask a question. I've gotten requirements as a developer all my life, as I'm sure you guys have. Oh, I just need you to do this simple thing. And every time they say simple thing, that's always the ones that I know is going to be the worst, because they think it's simple. I've had discussions. Oh, it's the third thing on the screen. Like, no, your database isn't the screen. The screen is referencing something out of your database. I need to know where that database is. Oh, it's screen 55. There's no such database called screen 55. And so we know as developers, we have to drag requirements out of people most of the time. They can't outright give them to us. The problem is that the IT people of that, well, Angelika's a nuisance. She keeps coming to me with more and more. I don't like it. Angelika gets frustrated that the process takes 6 months for me to build something for her. And so business leaders are pushing, I want the answer and I want it to be self-service. I think I can handle it. And the problem that we know is, well, you had self-service SQL and you couldn't handle it because you didn't know how to join SQL, and you really needed a DBA to build a view to join anything. And it only answered the one question you had yesterday. It's not answering the question you're going to ask tomorrow, which is the difference between Qlik and SQL-based tools anyway. And now I've got 80,000 data elements here in my Data Cathedral. Just ask a question about any of them. I'm sure it's going to go well for you.
Yeah, we need that. I think we should. For me, one of the biggest elements in my learning paths at the organizations that I work for when I work on data and AI literacy and adoption is critical thinking, questioning. So yeah, I think it's. I fully agree with you. It's a habit. It's a skill that we need to keep on developing, and it becomes more and more important nowadays. Even it was already important, but due to the whole changing world, it's one of the biggest skill sets that we need to develop. Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I know that you're a huge advocate, and your book was about data literacy. And, unfortunately, data literacy came about 30 years after we were doing analytics and people needed it.
It's a marketing
right
term.
now, what I'm hoping is that we don't go 30 years where people are destroying businesses by getting an answer that may not be correct because they're asking a really bad question without context. And then, 30 years from now, we talk about AI literacy, right? AI literacy needs,
Not from my point of view. There will be a new book somewhere this year.
Nice. Well, that's I hope it includes critical thinking.
Absolutely.
I use the phrase metacognitive analytics.
Yeah, we will talk about that later on a little bit. So let's talk about the big argument, right? You said in one email exchange that we had the biggest scam in the world, or that the biggest scam in the world is assuming you can take the same people who lose relationships because they can't communicate.
We did that one. Yeah.
Where are we? At 5.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Igor. My mind is still blowing up a little bit due to the family situation that I'm in.
No worries.
So most of the AI frustrations you hear right now is directed at the models, hallucinations, wrong answers, confidently stating things that aren't true, and you're redirecting some of that frustration back at the person asking. So how do you bring someone around that idea without getting defensive?
That is the hard thing, which was also the problem for data literacy, right? Just the word data literacy, you're implying you can't read, right? And there was a little bit of a negative connotation to that we had to get around. Another friend of mine calls it data fluency, which I thought was a much easier way to convey that without offending people. So we will, I'm sure, come up with some other easier way to talk about it, like metacognitive analytics, where I'm not offending anybody by saying you're not literate, you're not able to do this. We also have to distinguish between what are hallucinations. A hallucination to me is when I have it generate something for me and it hallucinates references. It tells me something, I say, give me the reference. But part of what I preach is ask it about the reference before you use it, right? Have it prove something. And if it comes back, like my boss asked me one time, it said this. I'm like, that's totally wrong. He said, but it said it. I said, bring up your screen, the next question I asked was, prove these references to me. And it said, you caught me. I was making this up for time. I thought you wanted a quick answer. That's not true, right? And if we learn how to ask those discerning, critical type questions, we can help avoid the hallucinations ourselves as well. But when we ask for something like, give me the sum of sales for 2025, the answer that may not be the one on the KPI, it's not a hallucination, it's not wrong. It had to infer some type of a date field, some type of a sales field. And your application, especially with Qlik, could have 17 date fields and 50 sales values. And so we've got to help understand what's the difference between a hallucination and an answer that is 1,000% correct if you understand and ask about the context. But people have to get this ability to be a critical thinker and say, tell me the context. Give me the nuance. What field did you use? Why did you use that field? What about my prompt caused you to use that field so that I know in the future I could change one word in how I'm asking and maybe get the answer that I'm actually expecting of the 80 variations that it could be.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about context a little bit more. So in the Qlik Dork YouTube channel, there's the 220 course available there for everyone, and
Yep.
all the links will be in the episode post, and so everybody can check it out and make sure you you subscribe to the Qlik Dork YouTube channel and go to the qlikdork.com website as well. But in that course, you talk about context wars.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, who's fighting in that war, and what's the thing that each side wants?
Great. I thank you for bringing that one up. That was a fun video to create, and it's part of. We have been using a white chat box for a long time that people are very successful with Google, and it may be another brand of a search engine. But Google's context, 1,000% is you. They make their livings off of knowing everything about Igor and everything off about Angelika. Hey, give me movies near me. I may not even have my GPS on, but they're able to ping cell towers to know where I am approximately because that is important to them. And we've all assumed it's reading my mind. And it's not reading your mind. It simply has a whole lot of information. You are their context. We've all seen and know they're listening to us talking. My phone is hearing everything I'm saying. If we talked about a restaurant and I started typing 2 letters into my search, it's going to find that restaurant's name with those 2 letters. Even though there could be a gajillion others, it just happens to read my mind that I'm looking for that restaurant. We accept that because it helps us in our lives. That same white chat box in front of data is a different situation. The knowledge base that's behind the data is way different than what's in my head. And that our problem is we assume that same level of ESP that we think Google has is going to be there when we're asking Claude or ChatGPT or, any of the variations of a client, right? And so that is a war that's going on in our heads. We assume something can do exactly what we want because Google's trained us that way. Claude doesn't know what is going on in my head. It doesn't get to listen to my phone conversations. It's not reading my emails. It's not reading my social media posts to know this is probably what Dalton's asking about. It has to look at the data as the reference point. And if the data is literally just the zeros and ones in your database, you've got problems, right? Because to me, data without metadata is just zeros and ones. And that has no value at all to anybody. But data with metadata is really, really valuable. And so one of the things that I've preached in the 11 years I've been with Qlik, and started preaching before I was with Qlik as a luminary about QlikSense, was master items. Because that governance layer, that semantics, that's what allows you to have better contextual answers. So you need those kind of things sitting on top of zeros and ones and on top of the code. But you're still never going to get to the point. AI is great, but it is data science. It is math. It is statistics. It is not ESP. It is not magic. So we have to convey that context that's in our head that we believe is magical because of Google.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember that I watched some videos, because I always shouted, why is there not a possibility to add metadata to our data fields in the script?
Mhm.
And you taught me via the videos the solution to add the metadata into
Yep.
the script. Yeah,
Yep.
really love that. And I wish that everybody would use it. Everybody, because
Yep.
we need metadata to understand. Simply
Yeah.
to understand. And
And
without
that's
metadata, we are
yep.
blind.
Yeah. When I just had this conversation last week at the Snowflake Summit. I have the conversation 1,000 times at Gartner, had the conversation 1,000 times at Qlik. We understand we're under pressure to build an app. We're trying to get the app built as fast as we can because there's 400 other things in a priority queue. And the 8th or the 9th day to document this has never come about, right?
Yeah.
The field of semantics is nothing new. The field of healthcare ontology is nothing new. This has been around my entire career. We simply have chosen getting the app built takes priority over that stuff. And all of the needed information goes into our 85-line nested if expressions. Because we did not build it thinking that we really wanted this decentralized AI self-service, right? We've come a long way, and the master measures let you decentralize further to real end users who now can just drag or drop those into charts and change things without ever having to know how to code. But that metadata better doggone be there to say this is the 7th version of the truth or the 13th version of the truth.
Yeah.
That there's not just one version of the truth out there, the way that many organizations talk about it.
Yeah. I fully get that.
I
So
think we're all in the health. We've all done a lot of healthcare analytics.
yeah.
Give me the length of stay. And we know there's going to be 13 variations on length of stay, depending on the role of the person asking that question.
Yeah. I remember when at the beginning of my project at the safety region, we had the discussion around culture balloon, door to balloon, all those elements, and that were really sometimes heated questions to actually frame that definition in a correct way. But we managed, and we got a result and a great app that eventually also won some prizes. So that was cool.
Nice.
So I wanna go to something I asked a question about to Igor an hour ago or something. It's called ESP because what the heck is ESP? I thought. Okay, so when you say that AI does not have ESP or extra sensorial perception, what does it look like in an actual conversation? Can you walk us through a real life example where the context gap just completely wrecks the answer?
Sure. The question I asked about, give me the sum of sales for 2025. The context that somebody has asking that is, I've seen a KPI on a screen somewhere that said, sales for 2020, sales for current year or whatever, right? And they don't realize even that there are other KPIs on other sheets in that same exact application or dashboard that are different, right? Because the sales for that app, Igor told me he wanted the total contract value sales. And maybe my context is I want the annual contract sales and I'm going to get paid for. But if I'm not telling the chat box that I'm looking for the way I'm going to get paid, so they could ask me, well, how do you get paid? Which of the 55 figures here do you get paid on? It's gonna pick some year and it's gonna pick some value. For those who use Salesforce data a lot, right? There's two main date fields for an opportunity: the opportunity creation date and the opportunity close date. And that's literally the field names, right? We all know this. Close to Salesforce isn't really closed because I've got a close date that's the target close date if the opportunity is still open, and it's the actual close date. So even that one field is shifting its metadata, meaning ChatGPT, Claude doesn't know that. So if you're asking for, I want my pipeline, I want to see my open record for Q1 or for 2025, it literally looks at the created date because it believes that the close date is those opportunities had to be closed. It doesn't know what the real metadata is in that situation. The person asking the question, who's the salesperson, account manager, doesn't know that those dates even exist. They simply look at a screen that shows them they can pick this. Somebody had to tell me, oh, if I give a date selection on this screen, I want you to use the close date. On this screen, I want you to use the created date. On this screen, I want you to use the partner record creation date so that we can track sales for the quarter that came from a partner. And we're only giving the partner credit for things where what quarter they created that opportunity in. But those are just three easy examples. And Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini don't have a clue.
No, they don't understand that.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
that's just simple. That's before we get into healthcare data.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Ooh.
Now, going to something that you touch a little bit already, metacognitive analytics. So we know that metacognition is thinking about your own thinking. Some scientists say humans are the only species who are able to do that. I am not 100% sure about that. But anyway, most analytics people are thinking about the data. What changes when you turn that lens on yourself?
Fantastic. And that's why I like bringing that up. And the field, really, that idea of thinking about thinking started with Socrates. I mean, he was known as the great thinker to begin with, let alone thinking about his own thinking. Like that's crazy. But it is really, as developers, we know we have to beg for the right requirements at times. In that process, nobody likes that process. Here's my requirement. This is easy. Just get it done tomorrow. Hey, I need to set up 18 levels of meetings because as I dig into the data, this is more complex than you even know. They don't want to go through that. And so part of this, the simple startup is, if I were asking Dalton to build this for me, how many questions would Dalton ask me? Right? And that's, if nothing else, those people, maybe that I'm not their favorite because I ask too many questions and it delays the process. because I want my answers to be 1,000% correct. I want to know everything about the data. I want to know every category code, which codes are only used on the 6th Tuesday of the month for test codes. That have to get left out. And so part of that starting process for that and that getting deeper critical thinking should be, who's the person in my organization who's asked me the most questions when I've asked them to do something simple? And then you need to think that through as you're chatting, or you need to be, you can set a skill in Claude or others that, hey, you ask me questions until there's only one field possible, right? Continue asking me. You're a requirements analyst, analyzing my question, not delivering me an answer. And so part of this has got to be, how can I change my own thinking about what simple is and what right or wrong is?
It's a great answer. Yeah. I always work with.
We should record that and put that out there for the world or something then.
Yeah, exactly.
Good idea. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. Okay.
Let me go back in time, and then we record a podcast and we put that on.
That'd be a great idea.
Yes.
That would be a good one. Yeah. So something came up about requirements analysis, and my trainees that I do, that I teach, either they're at the university or it's the commercial training that I do. I always tell them, you're asking too few questions.
Yep.
Please prepare yourself.
Yep.
And ask me endless questions. Because at the end, hopefully you will have the answer right.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have that section right to build in your dashboard. So yeah, I think it's very important, super important, and always forgotten.
And I think part of that is what I encourage in one of those videos that you've referenced, Igor, was move from questions to conversations.
Yeah.
Don't think about this as a one shot, I'm going to get an answer. I'm sitting down to have a conversation with Claude. I'm sitting down to have a conversation with ChatGPT. I'm not expecting this to be a 5-second, I'm going to get the right answer.
No.
And again, part of that may just start with, if I was having a conversation with Dalton, would Dalton tell me the number 17 after I ask one thing? And the answer is no. Dalton would never just give you an answer after you ask one question.
Great. So, and if you translate it to organization, because a lot of organizations will say they have already asked good questions. They have analytics, they have analytics teams, dashboards, KPIs, quarterly reviews. What is, in your opinion, the gap that they are not seeing?
I would say we already have great applications. Why didn't you just do that with one KPI? What did you need the application for? Right? Why isn't it just a single KPI? Because there's always more that people need to know on any particular day, given any particular circumstance, right? That's why there's a dashboard, but there's also a bunch of other screens. That's why there's drill downs. That's why there's lookups. There's always something else or another way to spin it. And that's been the beauty of the associative model. I could start here, but as my thinking flows over to there, I'm able to switch. I'm not in one lockdown SQL drill path elevator. I'm in the Qlik Wonka-vator that lets me go 4 ways, back ways, sideways, diagonal ways, any which ways. If that's the value you're getting out of Qlik, then that means you understand there's always more nuance. There's always another question. It's never as easy as, well, I just get one answer. You don't ever just get one answer, other than at the one time after you filtered and drilled to the exact thing you were looking for. Right. The problem is I can't trust myself. That's part of data literacy. I've had bosses in the past, literally, I can't trust myself to filter the right things. I want you to just build a sheet that gives me exactly the right answer. So if it's wrong, I can point my finger and blame you. And it's like, well, that's a great way to start this conversation is I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to learn. I don't want to take responsibility. That's a fantastic way to start the conversation. Now, please let me give you a white chat box so you can start that conversation there. I'm not going to take responsibility that I didn't ask for more context. I'm not going to take responsibility that I didn't say, tell me what fields you actually used. I'm not taking responsibility that I don't even know what it means that there are different fields for dates. I'm just going to point my finger and say, the box that you gave me, Igor, doesn't work. It's wrong. Get me a better solution that does the right thing next time. Just trying to be real.
Yeah. And now, interesting thing because one thing that I wrote in actually it's not live yet. I'm writing an article that will release in a few
Spoiler alert.
days or weeks. Yeah. And I'm talking a lot of things about AI, and I said, well, machine learning also includes teaching the human how to interact with the machine. It's not only the machine learning from the data. So the whole AI thing and the context and the questions and the chatbots and the LLMs, it's changing how we interact with data with the world, and it changes how we think, organize processes, etc. Now, my question is this teachable? Can you actually train someone to think differently about how they ask questions? Or does it require a mindset shift that has to come from somewhere else?
So great question. And I think we're all trying to figure out how to make that happen in the real world. The question about human, I'm glad you brought that word up because we think often, I've seen so many, AI is dehumanizing people. AI is dehumanizing people. To me, if we can make these white chat boxes work because we can grow and learn, we are actually making people more human. We started with, we've lost relationships with family members. We've lost relationships with spouse, our own children, friends, colleagues. It's cost us jobs because we can't communicate effectively. As we learn to communicate more effectively with AI, and it's going to force us to, I will lose my job if I go act on the wrong answer. As we get better communicating with AI and we learn more about context and nuance and how we think and how we jump to conclusions of right or wrong with one quick answer, it's going to make us more human, and we are going to be much more effective at our other conversations as well. But that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. And you touched already on humans and AI. And have you actually seen that happen yet? It's someone who got better at communication with people because they had to get better at communicating with AI.
So I would say honestly, I haven't seen it other than myself, and I've seen it in my wife. Because she recently was using ChatGPT on her phone, a freebie version, basically like a Google search. But, wow, this thing knows everything. Well, it's tapping into the same interwebs that Google was using, and it's just a different interface to ask, and you don't have to see a whole bunch of ads come back first. She's learning how to understand the conversation and she's asking the kind of questions now where ChatGPT asks her questions. So for reference, she was thinking she wanted, ChatGPT to give her a kitchen design that was what she had in her head. And it said, well, before we get into designing this, why don't you tell me what's functionally wrong with what you have now? Not the aesthetics of it, the functionality of it, because that's what kitchens are supposed to do, is function. And that got her down a whole different train of thought. And then I was like, okay, well, now we're just talking about aesthetics. Here's some suggestions on that. And she's even beginning to see, if she's more open, she gets to a much better answer in the long run. It just takes time getting there. So I've seen that personally. In others, I've seen it in people's eyes when I'm having these conversations at shows, right? I probably talked to 85 people over the course of 20 hours last week, in either in my sessions where I was presenting, or in one-to-one conversations, and their eyes just, oh my gosh, that explains so much. How can I get better at this? What do you suggest? Hey, here's video links. Just go watch these things. And I can see it in their eyes. Now, those folks are going to go home, and I'm never going to hear from them again. But there were plenty that, hey, I need to talk to somebody really in my C-level about really getting a chief question officer in the company. What would that role look like? And so you alluded to some of my other videos, Igor. One of them is actually about that role. What would that role look like at an organization? And that's the way it's going to happen, right? It's going to have to be, look, we know we're not going from zero to hero in one day here. This is what we're going to need.
Exactly.
How do we let people know this is some trial and error on your part as a human? And we're thinking, okay, I don't want you to burn any tokens that you didn't need to. Just hurry up and be perfect, right? And only ask the questions that get a huge ROI, and that's just not practical in the real world. As you start, you're going to ask questions that fail, and you're going to have to ask and ask and ask and ask and ask, and that session grows longer and longer and longer, and then the context it's retaining about your conversation grows longer and longer and longer. Which then will cost you more tokens when you ask more questions in that session.
And you miss, and the AI will miss the context, because there's a difference between the short-term memory and long-term memory.
Yep.
And the prompt is a probabilistic interface, so it's never going to give you exactly the same answer. It's a bunch of other things.
And now, we could do a whole nother show on that as well.
Exactly.
That's actually
I recommend turning on the memory instead of being afraid of it. Like, it's going to help you, because that's where the ESP comes from. It's going to get to know you and what your role is, and doing skills. Because as a developer, when I'm asking questions, and if I ask the question a second time and a third time, I want the same answer.
Unify AI.
Yeah, so that's where skills come in. That I want a center of excellence response.
Yeah.
But that only comes from trial and error. Where, okay, now the second time I asked, I went way down a different track. What skill did I need it? What do I need to hone about? Hey, if I'm asking questions about open incidents, that close date really is planned close, but that's the date I'm looking for, because that's when we're expecting to make the money. And I can put that in there, and then it doesn't have that problem the second time.
Interesting, Dalton. I don't, in my opinion, I don't think we talk as often as we should, but coincidentally, or maybe not, I think it's just the force, because we both data Jedis. But I think we kind of talk about similar things in parallel, and then realize, oh, interesting, he was talking about that. So I recently published an article on Data Voyages, so guys can go datavoyages.net and check. It's called Mirror, Mirror, What Building AI Taught Us About Being Human. And you also, in the end of some of your videos, you talk about the idea that AI won't make us less human. It will force us to become more human, better at sharing context, understanding nuance, which will actually improve relationships. And interesting that my article I took not as so much an optimistic take. I love that you actually take that optimistic take. And but let me ask you this: how far do you hold that statement that will make us better, will improve our human side?
So I look at that from a practical side. The only way that people will probably, and I don't mean to threaten anybody's jobs. If you're out there in a trade, your job is safe. AI is not doing plumbing for anybody. AI may design some things that allow non-certified plumbers to do, but it's not physically changing pipes. It's not physically swinging a hammer. It's not laying bricks. It's not building the construction of a cathedral, right? Whatever that cathedral is, whether it's a data cathedral in our world or in any other practice. But for humans that have jobs, you're either going to be effective using AI or you are going to be unemployed. I don't see a way for anybody in the not so distant future to succeed in their role if they can't use AI effectively, whether it's as a developer, whether it's as a salesperson, whether it's as a marketing person, whether it's as a chief financial officer. Things are moving so fast that your only chance to compete is with AI. And so by the very nature that we're going to want to compete and keep our job and make money to eat and have a roof over our head based on, Pavlov's needs, we're going to have to get better, right? We've never been forced to get better because of relationships. I could stop talking to Angelika tomorrow and be mad at her forever, but I can talk to Igor instead and meet somebody new I could talk to instead, right? And so we're never punished for our lack of communication, our lack of ability to think about how we're thinking, our lack of sharing context, our lack of nuance. We just move on, right? And there's always somebody else that we could talk to and who's more than happy to hear our woes of how people are mean to us. But in the world we're living in, you can't compete. There's no way I could do my job right now. Like even as the Qlik Dork, there's no way I could have done what I've done this year if I didn't have AI by my side. Like just no way. There's the learning curve of everything I've been producing. I would have had to take weeks and weeks and weeks of video training to learn by hand, and AI just helps me skip all of it. Now, it doesn't replace the fact that I'm still a debugger at heart, and I will walk through everything. Like I'm not taking for granted this thing's right. I will walk through it and make sure that it works and debug and say, hey, I think you're forgetting about this. And there are absolutely times, hey, what was the URL with the information about this ServiceNow API? Because you're not doing this right. I'm going to go read it. And so part of, I think, being successful, another piece of advice, if anybody wants to write this one down, ask the questions about things that you can verify. Exactly. If you ask it to do something that you don't know how to verify, you are setting yourself up for troubles. Somebody else laugh at you.
It's part of the responsible use of AI as well.
Exactly.
Transparent and traceable. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so, if you don't know how to verify what you're getting back, don't share that with anyone. Like I've seen that fail for other people too many times, where they just state something that came from Claude or something that came from ChatGPT, and they get embarrassed, right? And we've got to take responsibility. We can joke, ChatGPT said that it hallucinated. No, You personally,
human, yeah.
you took something that AI did, represented it as your work, and now it's your reputation that is the joke, not the hallucination.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that
Exactly.
continuously happening. Never questioning, never framing, never
Mhm.
just accepting the answers as they are. It's,
Yeah. That's just intellectual laziness, right? We
yeah,
have
no.
that term we
Although
throw
I
around.
teach, and some of the leaders just accept
Yeah.
the answers
Yep.
straight away, without checking, without
Nope.
verifying, without
Nope.
controlling.
Because they're just looking for the quick one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think probably what your answer would be when I ask you the following question. So if somebody that is listening today and he leads a data team and they want to start moving in this direction, what's the first concrete thing they should do tomorrow morning?
Probably watch some videos about a chief question officer and
Yeah.
metacognitive analytics. Besides that, I would start thinking about the fact that development is changed. We are no longer in a build something over the course of 2 years, have that one version for the whole year. We're past that, right? But the problem is for many companies, the processes that surround that are geared towards that. So even though our development processes, I could generate something with Claude and have it in production tomorrow that is flawless if I debug it and test it, right? I've got to do a whole lot of training. I've got to do documentation. I've got to get stuff on a web. I got to get stuff, approved by legal. I got to get sales enabled. I got to get, solution architects enabled. And those processes are not geared towards the world we're living in. The bigger thing to me is when I've been presenting lately, especially about how I can just ask like Snowflake Coco for the demo I did last week. Do I have a semantic view that's governed that has this? Build me a Qlik app from it. It builds it with the comments embedded in the code for the developer. It puts them as comment field at the bottom of the app, like what you were referring to, Angelika, that then those comments go into as metadata into the data model and travel with that data forever. And it can build the master items. If I can build that in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes instead of months, my time should be spent in metadata, identifying the metadata, acknowledging those meetings. You mentioned, I think, there's times that people don't want to have those conversations because it becomes heated in the meeting rooms. Well, let's just skip it. I'll have Dalton build me one app and one app for you. Those conversations, we now if we have those and can get to where, how do I explain those nuances and acknowledge we don't have one version of the truth for length of state. We got 13. But what's the description about each of the 13 that we could put in there? Because when Dalton presses the button to generate an app, it can generate it with the right version if we've got it, and he can put it in there. This app is being built for the emergency room team. Well, then I need to know I'm looking at the emergency room length of stay, not the overall hospital's length of stay.
Exactly.
Types of things like that. So be thinking about the fact that the processes that used to take so much time, the building, can now be greatly simplified, and the processes where you excuse me, we're hoping for an 8th or 9th day of the week where I could get the master data dictionary done or typed up. That's where we need to spend time first, because then what we build and the AI questions are going to be a whole lot easier to get out.
Yeah, the thing is that I'm always struggling with this metadata concept, and I know we are 1 hour and almost 10 minutes on our road, but I love this discussion. My thought is that we really need actually the first place where you read in the data and you have the tables to add the metadata inside, the definitions and what it means, and before even running the script and so on.
Yep. Exactly.
instead of doing it in the script. So that layer, that first layer of the logic, that is what helps the developers, you guys, that
Yep.
helps the business users like me to understand what the freak we are looking at, or understand
Yes.
how things were measured.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fully get you
And
on that. Fully get you on that. So that should be the first thing that would
yep.
need to change tomorrow.
Yeah.
Period.
Those are things that have been being preached for many years.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we felt it was, hey, that's going to take me 3 months. And by the time we implement it, my business process changed. I got a new source. I
Yeah.
got new software, right? The old fashioned traditional warehouses took years to develop. And by the time it got done, there was already a brand new source system or OLTP system, and everything changed, right? It's people, hey,
Yeah.
just build me something now, build me something now, build me something now. Nowadays, we can build really, really quickly. How quality it is and whether it's governed depends on whether we've spent the time up front to focus on that metadata.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now
Yeah.
for
You're
our
going to be able
final.
to edit. You're going to be able to edit this, right?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to stop my video and restart my video. My camera right now seems like I'm kind of out of focus.
Okay.
Okay.
Did that get any better?
Nope.
Could just be me. Do I look
It's
like
fine.
I'm in focus? Maybe it's just me.
It's fine.
No. It's fine. Just stay.
Yeah.
All right. It's
So
just me. It's me then.
so right. So for our final question, more maybe personal, maybe not, but where does the Qlik Dork go from here? Like course series, blog, speaking, you go to a lot of events. So what are you building toward, if you can share?
That's a great question. Professionally, right now, I'm going to be very, very focused on our ServiceNow partnership. Super excited about what this entails for joint customers. We've got so many partners that are super excited about having the ability to talk both sides of that conversation. So professionally, my day job is focused on that. I have 2 speaking engagements I'm going to be doing that are outside of the Qlik world this year that I'm looking forward to, that are on the metacognitive analytics topic. One is going to be at University of North Dakota, and it's really for students and other AI professionals, and trying to help that generation who's going to have the impact. Right, they're easier to teach than older people who are old. Hard to teach old dog new tricks, right? And then another one is for more of an AI related conference as well. That's going to be in Austin, kind of a neat conference. And so I'm really looking forward to being out there as a presenter, where I can present the thought leadership concepts, not just the physical. Here's how you do this with a set analysis expression that I focus on so much right now.
I feel you, Dalton. I feel you.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, make sure you follow Dalton like everywhere he's in, so you be what's coming next. About today's conversation, the things that comes back to me is how much we underestimate the question. We obsess over the answer. We evaluate modules, measure outputs, argue about hallucinations, and the whole time, the real bottleneck might be sitting on our side of the screen. Dalton arguments here isn't pessimistic as we thought about AI. It's actually the opposite. If AI forces us to get clear about what we need, to share more context, to think before we type, those habits don't stay in the chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
They follow you into the meeting, into the email, into the conversation within a avoided with someone who actually matters. And that's hopeful. And there's a hopeful thing to pull out of a data podcast. So again, Dalton, thank you. This was a great conversation. And for everyone listening, if you want to go deeper, go to qlikdork.com, qlikdork.com, and go to YouTube and subscribe to the Qlik Dork channel. And you find like the courses, the blog, there's the Qlik Dork podcast, and in our episode show notes, the links will be all there. And as always, Angelika, thanks for making this great partnership. Any final words?
No, I really loved the conversation. I know we talked at Qlik Connect, and you really wanted to discuss the topic, the chief question officer, and we did. So that promise was kept. And I would love to continue about it, talk about the metacognitive analytics, talk about education, talk about questioning. So let's keep that alive, because it has never been that important as it is now.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree that it's getting really serious right now for people. And there's a lot of people who are scared, and they're thinking, what can I do to make sure that I keep my job? To me, this is it.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much, Dalton.
Thank you for having me on. I love you guys.
Thank you. The feeling is the same here. So thank you, and thank you for everyone who's listening. And make sure to follow also Data Voyages on LinkedIn. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also on Instagram. Give us 5 stars. Great. And share our content. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you get your podcasts. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Ciao, pessoal.
Hoi, doei.
Have a great day.
Data